How do you start a ranch in 2025? Steers are waiting. They're ready to go. First, let's assume that you already did your research and you already know exactly what type of operation that you want to start. And we'll also assume that you already reached out and found other ranchers in your area who have been able to give you a little bit of experience, a little taste of what it's like. But now you're really ready to get in the game. You're really ready to buy your first cow or steer. All right, so you know what type of operation you're looking for. You know what type of animal you need to be looking for. Now, if you've already talked to a rancher in your local area and you had somebody who helped you sort of get some experience, that is the first place I look to start when it comes to finding which animal you want to purchase. Because why? Well, if they have been able to help you this far, they might be willing to give you a little bit of a deal. And sometimes, depending on the operation, you could work out a deal if you were just trying to buy a steer to finish to sell direct to consumer. It's potential that they would let you pay after you've already got it sold. What do I mean by that? They would lend you the steer per se and not make you pay for the steer until you've already sold the beef from that steer. That is kind of an advantage. You don't have to get financing that way. But let's say that isn't an option. I mean, pursue that option if it is available. Same is true with a cow-calf operation. If, you could exchange some labor for an animal or something like that to get your first animal, that is always the best choice. But let's say that you need to actually, get some actual financing and purchase your first cow. Steers are ready to go. Boss. You might have heard me say one cow or one steer, and you might be like, okay, well, I want to buy more than that. Well, okay. First of all, let's assume that you do have the yard space to buy more. Let's assume you do already have the pasture. Is that coming from rented ground? Is that coming from rented yard space? Is it coming from the person who helped you sort of gain some experience? A rancher, fellow neighbor rancher, maybe a parent. Where's that space coming from? Second of all, I think that starting small is better. So even if you want to do more than one, I don't think there's anything wrong with starting with just one head, because going through a full year's operation and seeing how that one animal production line of that whole animal is throughout that full year is very, very important. Because if you're doing direct consumer, you get to actually see the cost of that. Let's just use me as an example. I'm starting with 3 head right here, 3 steers. I can see the input costs of the entire operation from start to finish. The purchase price of the steers, the feed cost, the yard space rent, the hay cost, the grass pasture rent, all the way to when we actually have the beef to sell direct to consumer. And you can see the inputs and the outputs and actually calculate all of that. And it's a lot easier to track with a few head. So I'm starting small, and I think you guys should do the same. No shame in starting with one, especially with where the cattle market prices are right now. You might know that they're pretty high, especially, in my area. And I think it's pretty much all over the country. The board prices on the commodity side are definitely high. Let's break it down. Let's say you know how many head you need. Okay, well, you need to find the financing. Do you have the financing? I would say cash is always best. Cash is king. If you can pay cash, I would suggest doing that. But do not forget about the input costs. This is why starting small is so important. You are going to have to pay for the inputs throughout the production. So we'll just use direct consumer beef as an example because it is what I'm showing you right here. Let's say I needed to purchase these 3 steers and they were, let's say $1,800 each when I first was going to get them. Okay, well, if you need 3, $1,800 times 3, what's that? Let's see if we can do some quick math. $5,400. Okay, so $5,400, and if I'm wrong, I'm gonna feel really stupid throughout the rest of this video, but do not forget, I have to buy feed, I have to, rent yard space, rent the pasture. I have to buy hay. I have to, is there a water line that you have to pay electricity for? And yes, these things should be added into your, your true cost of production. How do we do it if we need to get financing? Okay, number one, I said, is find those, seller type financing deals, or work with a rancher who's already helped you out a little bit, somebody you've gotten experience from. If you can't get that type of deal worked out right away, before you go run to a bank or an FSA or a farm credit or any of those things, I would suggest finding somebody, a family member, somebody like a parent who would be willing to lend you. And this is why I said start small, guys. Like, you're not just going to get like a $30,000 loan from just anybody. Let's talk about maybe getting a $2,000 loan from a parent to buy one cow or one steer. And again, cows are different, guy. Cow calf is going to be different, but we're just using this as an example. To buy that one steer for $1,800, and then you got $200 to start up on your feed costs. Okay, that'll get you started, and then you could pre-sell the beef to get some more capital raised. That is an option. If you need to go through financing, there are things like FSA. You can get a micro loan to start out for a small direct-to-consumer beef business. If you want to do that, you need to have a business plan set and in place. They're going to want to see that. You're going to need your tax returns. And even if you go to a bank, they're probably going to want to see this, especially if you're young, guys, especially if you've never had a cattle operation before. They're going to want to see your tax returns. They're going to want to see, the game plan of where it's going to be, how you're going to sell your beef, who you're going to sell your beef to. Okay? It's going to be good to get all that together, because there's going to be things like the value added producer grant, I believe it's called. It's a grant available for people who want to do direct consumer. And if you're going to do cow calf or anything else, there's other grants available out there. And those are things that we can talk to you about and help you find in the Agri Summit group. Things that are specific to your specific operation. But direct consumer, that is one I know off the top of my head. I think it's $25,000 maybe for the microloans at FSA. That's probably a good place to start. I would keep it under that for the first year. And you might be excited like me and wants to start and get into it really fast, and that's understandable. But guys, I'm holding back. Three head. Start small, and then you can build that profitable system and then scale up in future years. Take your time learning. You've already done your due diligence, and you've already worked so hard thus far getting that ground base set that you don't want to screw it up. And you're already looking into content like this video right here, so you don't want to mess that up. How do you find land? How do you find operations? Well, again, if you had somebody who's helped you get started ranching, teach you a little bit, ask them first. Like we've mentioned in other videos, ask them first. Similar to that, financing deal that they could help you out with. Ask them about the yard space, ask them about the pasture. But if you don't have it, you're going to have to look. You're going to have to look all over the place on the internet. You're going to have to find all the neighbors. And trust me, online is not always the best when it comes to ranching and ag products. It's catching up to other areas, but there's always going to be I think from a family rancher standpoint, family operator standpoint, there's always going to be a little bit of that old school mentality there, where you need to go to your neighbors, find those people, the neighbors who have the land, the neighbors who have the yard space, drive around, look for empty yards, look for empty small pastures, see if somebody's willing to rent you the space, see if they are willing to maybe trade you for some beef. And you're going to have to kind of work those financing numbers out, and that's okay. You can do that. You're going to have to put in a little bit of extra effort if you don't have the land already. You're going to have to, again, how bad do you want this? How bad do you want to do this? How bad do you want this to work? Go find everybody, drive around, everybody you can, write out all the names, call every single one of them up, go knock on their door. You talk about people who really want to make something work, starting their first business. How hard do they have to work? That is exactly what you're doing. You're working hard. You're putting in so much extra effort, and all you need is somebody to give you a chance. That being said, if you already have the land, you're good. I do not suggest buying land on the first go. I don't suggest it unless you've already paid the mortgage or started building a house on a place. You know, that's included in your housing costs and stuff. Unless you've already done that and that's all worked out, I would not suggest just going and finding an 80 and trying to buy it right away until you have this profit system built up and proven, and then scale, and then you can be able to do it. Remember, be patient. Go online, and like I mentioned, those grants, I want you to find every single thing you can. All sorts of grants, all sorts of programs, all sorts of information, research. Join the Agri Summit group would be a great place to learn more about your operation. Ask, ChatGPT, this fact check the heck out of it, but ask ChatGPT in your specific situation, your specific area. Just let it give you a rundown of what you should be looking for, what you should be asking. It's a great place to start and get a baseline, and then you can go and ask people. I did the same thing for this, and if it's direct to consumer, think about all the way through the end of production, guys. Everything all the way through the end of production. So I was calling the butcher place. I was asking the locker, what kind of cuts, what cut sheet do you have, and finding USDA inspected facilities, looking up laws, finding those things. There's a lot more that goes into this than you realize. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to an accountant too. Figure out how this is gonna look at the end of the year. That's why starting small is so important. In 2025, the best way to start ranching is to start small, start a family operation, and build that profit system and scale up from there. If you're interested in Agri Summit, link will be in the description. If this video was valuable, I would appreciate you subscribing. The more subscribers, the more valuable content, the more effort, the more time I can put into these videos for you guys. I'll see you in the next one. God bless.